What if helping a child feel safer, braver, and more emotionally resilient came in the form of a teddy bear? Not just any bear, a bear designed with over 40 children, packed with sensory features and loaded with guided tools to help kids understand and process their emotions. In today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Louise Mansell, clinical psychologist and founder of Tedology. We talk about why early emotional intervention changes everything, what children with trauma actually need that most of us aren't giving them, and how TED is quietly doing some incredible work in homes, schools, and even university labs across Australia. Let's go talk to Louise and see what she has to say. Good morning, Dr. Louise. How are
Good
you?
morning. I'm good, thank you.
So when we met, it feels like it was yesterday, but it was a couple of months ago now. It's like nearly 3 months ago, I think. We met at a Bikers Against Child Abuse presentation that the guys from Backer actually asked me to come, and that's how we met. And the minute I met you, you're such a beautiful person. You were so lovely. And the guys had told me about you. They actually asked me to write a letter. And oh my gosh, did I do that letter? Far out, I can't remember. But the guys asked me to do a letter to help support them because Backer supports children who are going through court in regards to their child sexual abuse cases. I don't know even how I got in touch with them. They contacted me, and here we are. But I met you through that. And when I heard about your story and a bit about your Teddy or your Tedology, I was like, this woman, she's amazing. I just love people who see something that is lacking and they find a solution. Like, more of us need to do that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you said yes to joining me on the podcast, because I
No,
really want
thank
people
you.
to know more about you and about Tedology. But before we get into all of that, could you just tell my listeners a little bit about who you are and how you got to here, and then we can talk about the beautiful Tedology purpose, mission that you have.
Yes, so it depends where we start, but I suppose you'll tell by my accent straight away. I'm not Australian. Moved to Australia 4 years ago now. Prior to that, I'd been working as a clinical psychologist in the UK. But I'd always had an interest in it. I feel like I'd always been a psychologist in some form or another. So my mum had anxiety throughout my whole childhood. And I remember helping her at 8 years old on a fairground ride. She was having a panic attack. And I just knew how to help her. And I did. And that just became my role then. It was always see to your mum, see to your brother. It was just what I did. So when I, at 19, read the job description of a clinical psychologist, I wasn't studying clinical psychology at the time. I just read it and thought, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. It was that obvious to me.
Yeah.
And then I just set about doing that for 10 years before I qualified then.
Wow.
To get that.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't realize you have to do a lot of study to get into clinical psychology.
Yeah, and a lot of experience in hospitals. And it was so invaluable, though, to just work with people. That was the advice I got. If you want to get into this, work with people in whatever capacity you can. And that was my most favorite thing to do. So throughout the whole training, you get exposure to all different areas of psychology. But for me, it had always been this idea that if we can teach children emotions earlier, if we can teach them how to manage difficult feelings earlier, we can change generations if we can get in there early. And I suppose I knew, I'm quite creative anyway, I knew that we had to do things differently. I knew this couldn't be a matter of seeing a psychologist one-to-one and seeing all the children that need the support. It had to be bigger than that. It had to be something that you could do at scale. So I went through a phase of kind of online parenting before online parenting was a thing. So that was in 2010.
Wow.
And with Matt Sanders, who's actually Australian, the founder of Triple P. So I did my doctorate thesis with Matt Sanders.
Wow.
They was always supposed to come to Australia.
Yeah, definitely.
But always really focusing on that. How can we get these messages that I'm learning on doctoral training? Like, how are we waiting this long to teach people this stuff? We need to be teaching it so much earlier than we were. So that early intervention always appealed to me.
What's crazy to me is that, and a lot of parents and a lot of people can probably relate, is that you were kind of adulting from a very young age. You were, having to support your mum through her anxiety, which her generation probably didn't even have the language around this. And she probably had no idea what was going on. She just felt really anxious and really scared. and you were supporting her from a very young age because obviously it's innate in you to support and help people. And I can relate to that because I feel like I've been helping and supporting my family for my whole life as well. And, and it's no wonder we go into these careers
Yeah.
where we're already like, well, we're doing it for our family. Why don't we do it for everyone kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was that idea that on this training course, that on the clinical psychology training, you're given these ways of helping people with panic attacks, with worries, with general anxiety that are a matter of a number of sessions. And I'd seen my mum struggle with this for years.
Yeah.
Thinking, we need to be telling people this. And that's always been my thing. Like, why are we not telling people?
Why doesn't everyone know what we know?
Yeah.
I think also it's the same with me. Like, it seems so simple and easy because when you know why you need it, it's easy to do, right? And it's not some big scary thing to learn. I really find I think you hit the nail on the head. We need to learn these tools earlier so that we can learn to support ourselves, to have the skills to be able to support ourselves so that it doesn't become a problem that becomes bigger, that we are struggling to thrive, basically. We're struggling to thrive. We're affecting everyone around us. We're affecting our families, our kids, whoever. I also think some of these issues as a young person, we tend to squash them. And then as a parent or an adult, or an older, like, you get to your 30s or something, you're like, why is this coming up now? It's because we spent so much time ignoring it or pushing it away and trying to just get on with things. When if we had dealt with it back when it was a littler problem, or not a problem, but you know what I mean, a littler challenge, then it wouldn't be such a big problem. And I think we're seeing that with our kids as well. Our kids, anxiety or generalized anxiety and being scared, because we haven't, as adults and parents, we haven't had the tools given to us. So then we're not giving them to our kids. But their fears start off as very little things, but then they keep growing and growing and growing until they've got school refusal, until they're, not able to do anything or leave the house. And that's because we possibly didn't catch it early enough.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the really important things to think about, is that it's that idea of helping children and families understand there's something you can do about this feeling.
Yes.
There's something you can do about any of the feelings, and it isn't distract yourself. And that's me on a bit of a soapbox of obviously the unfounded advice that's around for parents. Back when I started this 15 years ago, there wasn't that much talk about emotions and, child psychology. And it was kind of this thing that you went to certainly in the UK anyway, that you went to hospital to sort out.
Yeah, right.
To a CAMS service, which is where I was. Now there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of books and there's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But it's not always the right noise. And especially with worry, the amount of children I'll see who say, I want to get rid of worry. We want to be able to manage worry. We can't get rid of worry because we're not safe if we get rid of worry. Yeah.
And I think that's because we haven't spent enough time really talking about, I think a lot of us are scared to feel feelings. And I can speak from experience with regards to like the men in my life. Feelings equate to they're either too big or there's not enough. There's no in between. Whereas I've been seeing psychologists since I was in my early 20s, probably 2021. And the reason for that was because I knew that I needed help to understand what I was feeling, because it was either really big or I was numbing it. There was no in between. There was no healthy feeling. And so I went and started seeking help and guidance back in my 20s. And I was talking to someone about this the other day. I was like, I've seen probably in excess of 20 different psychologists over time, right?
Okay.
And because some of them fit, it was explained to me quite a few years ago, that psychologists are like shoes. Not all of them fit.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I was like, okay. So you keep trying until you find the right one. When someone said that to me, and it was a psychologist actually who said it to me. When a psychologist said that to me, I was like, oh, that gives me permission to not like and stick with every psychologist, right? Because sometimes we stick with psychologists that don't match us and don't match our vibe and don't make us feel like we're, understanding anything. And then we feel like we're the failure, whereas it's just not the right fit.
Yeah.
So I think, I think with regards to this, I think your mission in regards to helping children with some skills and tools that gives them the tools to help regulate their emotions and help them understand that, yeah, we can't get rid of all emotions and feelings. They're here to make us safe.
Yeah. And I think on that kind of idea of preparing yourself for adulthood, I then specialised in childhood trauma, which is kind of where our work really started to overlap when I heard you speak, and working with children in the care system and knowing the importance of having that space and that safe person to be able to talk to, but really recognising how hard it was for those children who'd had those experiences, that they either didn't feel safe talking to people because people had harmed them.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is they often didn't even have pets to talk to. So it's really, really important that, yeah, we understand emotions, we understand how to name them, talk about them, how to calm them. But there's this real important piece that's often missing is how do we process our experiences? Because when emotions are coming back up and you're trying all the strategies that typically we've been told now,
Yeah, they're shared with us. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're often not the processing strategies. They're not the write this down, talk to somebody and why you would do it. We understand why we eat vegetables and we understand why we drink water. We need to be understanding why it's so important to verbalize or write down or play or do something with emotions. You can't leave them stuck inside your body.
Yes.
It's very harmful.
Yes.
But that was a real gap for lots of children, but particularly for children in care from my perspective, because who is getting that information? Who are they telling? Who are they talking to? Where are those feelings going? And then the impact that has on their physical health and their future is, the research on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, tells us that that's not an okay thing to have experienced, but then to keep inside your body. And when I worked in the area of child protection, I would say it's one of the hardest areas to work in because you're asking children who've been harmed by people to trust you.
To trust people, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's the same with me. It's the same with, being a police officer and sitting across the table and asking a child to tell them in detail what their abuse was and how it happened and who did it, and expecting someone who has possibly felt like no one's safe and it's not safe to talk about because it could mean that they lose their home. It could mean that their family gets further abuse. There's a lot of different factors that stops children from talking.
Yeah.
And not have
Even in therapy, children would not be able to tell me things because of the implications it would have. They couldn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because of the implications it would have.
Yeah.
So it was twofold really with Tedology. It was thinking there's some children who really benefit from this. Most children, I believe, need to know. I've put essentially what I would want children to know about emotions, both how to regulate them, but also how to think about them into a teddy bear, knowing that some children will benefit from that, but some children will need it.
Yeah. And I'm thinking back to my own childhood, and I've had a lot of guests on my podcast who I think it's when what you needed as a child, you then go and find and create for other children, right?
Yeah.
So I needed someone to talk to and I needed someone to have conversations with me. No one had conversations with me and explained the world to me. So what do? I go and teach people how to have conversations with kids that help them feel safe and empowered. You went and created a teddy bear that helped you do the things that you were doing for everyone else and potentially needed for yourself, but you didn't have the space or the person to listen to you. And I think that's what we do. But going back to one thing that really stuck in my head when you said it, pets. How many of us talked to our pets when we were kids about what we were going through? Your family dog, your cat. I had a horse and I remember crying into my horse's mane about how I had no one. I was alone. I was feeling scared, like no one was with me. And my horse was my safe place. Yeah. And so I think we underestimate how important pets are to kids. And when there's no pet, it's their teddies or their toys that, they're just an inanimate object, but really that they provide a space, a safe space.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it was kind of knowing that my dog was the most important thing.
Oh, gosh, makes my heart hurt how many of our pets probably carried all of our worries and our fears and our tears, and they're no longer with us. Like, you made my heart hurt when I thought about it. I was like,
Yeah.
my poor horse, he carried all of my sorrows.
But then you are left with that as an adult and as a parent myself, like to recognize my own emotions. I have to really work on that because there wasn't a space for me to have emotions in
No.
my family. So I was a good girl.
Yeah, same.
I was just a good girl. And then you get to be a parent and you're realizing, gosh, I'm going from 0 to 100 in no time at all because I'm not noticing it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no pickup of feelings. I think I see it in my husband a lot because he wasn't allowed to feel, right? Like, and it's not his parents' fault. It's not like, but when we know better, we can do better.
Yeah.
And so my husband has watched me go through this journey and then he's like, oh, and then I'm naming feelings and emotions. My daughter names feelings and emotions all the time because she had that conversations. We talked things through. We had conversations about, when she was feeling anxious and nervous, what it was and why sometimes our body tricks us to think that we're dying, but we're actually okay. And, so having all of those conversations, he's watched us and then he's going, oh, I actually don't recognize it before it happens. And sometimes I don't. If I'm extremely triggered or my PTSD flares up or whatever happens, there's no regulation. So, but imagine all of the kids if they had regulated conversations around this and then they were able to recognize it, they're able to help themselves with the tools that you've created in the Tedology. Teddy, imagine that. Like how many kids could be so much healthier and happier throughout their lives, no matter what they went through.
Yeah. That was the whole mission, I suppose, when I started this and realizing it didn't exist. And it was with all the advances in technology that made me think, hang on a minute, there's all these advances and children are stuck with the same bear that they've had for 100 years. Like we need to enhance the humble bear. And that was my kind of, right, how do I enhance it? And then children worked with me. Over 40 children in Perth worked with me to create how that bear looks, the fact that it has sensory tags, how its paws are designed, what it says. Every aspect of that's designed with children. The beautiful thing about designing it with children is they're brutally honest.
I know. I freaking love kids. I was saying to someone the other day, it's funny because I don't work with children anymore. But I love my friends' kids. I love spending time with them. Random kids in the shops. If I see a kid having a meltdown, I'm like, yeah, you go. I'm not even fazed by behavior because to me, behavior is a form of language. Kids are trying to tell you something. But the thing is that it's how we help our kids, understand what they're feeling is going to make a difference for their adulthood. So let's talk about Tedology and talk about Ted because when I opened the box, okay, so I saw you with this box and this is obviously an audio, but you can watch it on YouTube as well. So we've got Tedology's box here, right? And when I saw you had Ted there, I didn't really look at it, but I was like, I've got to get it. Got to get one. And so I opened the box and I was so impressed by Ted. Like I said, I've got a daughter who is ADHD, so autistic and ADHD. We didn't know about her since I had no clue about this, right? When she was little, I just was like, that's my girl. She likes to sing a lot. She was stimming all the time. She had certain things that she would rub between her fingers. We laugh about it now. She's 18. We laugh about it. We're packing up our house at the moment and we found her blankie. And I remember she used to rub it on her lip and that was her soothing, right? She was self-soothing. So when I saw Ted and I saw that Ted's got these little ribbons and you're talking about the paws are soft. I'm thinking from her perspective, her childhood's, some parts of it crackle, the sound, the ears, I'm just doing it right now. If anyone at home is wondering what I'm doing, I'm touching Ted. And, the paws are heavy, but the actual weight of it, the teddy is a very good weight because Teddy needs to, if you're laying on your bed with Ted on your stomach and you're trying to do breathing or whatever Ted's talking you through, you've got that, right? And so I was really impressed with Ted. I've just got to say that. And Ted sits up if you need Ted to sit up and talk to.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm kind of jealous that kids get to have this. So
adults are allowed it. There's been a surprising number of adults who've bought the bear for themselves. My mum being one of them. Obviously, she didn't pay it. I did send it.
Oh, I would have made her pay full price. No. No, I know what you're saying.
But yeah, adults have used the bear and that's potentially something we could think about in the future that people mention a lot to me.
Yeah.
But obviously my initial thoughts was, how do I get this to benefit as many children as possible? How do I get this in children's homes so that
Yeah.
they can, yes, receive the sensory comfort that engages them so much with the bear. Children love this bear,
Yeah.
but it's been designed with children, and
Yeah.
every aspect of it, why one of the tags is looped, why one's ribbed and why one's soft. There's reasons for that, because you'll know from your daughter, she would have had a preference for which tag,
Which,
and whether
yes.
she has a looped tag to twist around her fingers, or whether she kind of does this
Yeah. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And our hands and mouths are the most responsive to sensory input. So that's the quickest way to calm us down.
Yeah.
So that's why you see that behavior, but it's also why you see children biting nails.
Yeah.
It's not
She's
a
a skin
clinical
picker and
problem.
nail biter.
Yeah. And often, the amount of money, I suppose, that's been made on getting things that taste horrible for nails,
Yeah.
rather than recognizing that as that person seems to need more sensory input. And that's why they're doing this. It's not something
My husband does that too.
Yeah.
He's a skin
It's not,
picker and nail biter.
yeah. It's not something we're ever told, like, "Are you struggling, sweetheart?" Or, "Oh, what's going on? Do you need this?" Or, "Should we just go outside for a little bit?" You're told to stop biting your nails, or parents put awful stuff on them.
Yes.
When I tell children, I say, "Oh yeah, people who bite their nails, it's because your brain likes it, because it calms it down." Like, all of a sudden the shame about it, and it makes more sense. And then parents can understand that actually that's an early indication that something's feeling a bit unsettled. It's
Yeah,
only
that's
the
a good
same as,
point.
yeah, it's only the same as like if hairs on our arms stand on end when we're cold, or we can sense that. We don't tell people to stop. We don't tell them to stop shivering.
No, true.
But
Oh my
anything
gosh.
emotional, children are often told to stop.
I know. And it's really, I mean, look, I'm on the other side of, not, you never stop parenting, but I'm on the other side of childhood with my daughter. Like, she's literally 18 and moved out of home. And that's a big jump for me. And she's like, yeah, but obviously I gave her enough tools and she feels ready. And if she comes home, she comes home. If she doesn't, she doesn't. She might be like me and just keeps going from thing to thing. But, like, I look back on my parenting and I'm like, there were so many warning signs and opportunities to help her. I feel like I did a fairly good job because I knew enough. But now looking back, especially with her autism and ADHD, I could have definitely supported that better. And so, I guess some of us, like, how amazing is it that some of us didn't have it for ourselves, so we don't know how to do it for our kids. But now we've got, like, Ted comes with like these feeling cards, right? And like, we've got a deck of emotions in the pack. And like, the thing is that we were never taught I just had happy and angry when I was growing up. Like, and I used to get told off for my face all the time. My face is very emotive. So when I was a kid, I used to get told off if I wasn't happy about something, but I wasn't allowed to say anything, right? So I was brought up with, you're not allowed to speak back. You're not allowed to talk back to parents or adults, right? But my face would say what I was thinking, because I was like, the wind will change. Like, if you keep looking like that, the wind will change and your face will look like that forever. Everyone knew what I was thinking. But yeah, the cards are like, you've got Ted with embarrassed and happy and all of these cards. And you've got some games that kids can play with them. And you as an adult can help your children understand the different feelings, because feelings are just feelings.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with feelings.
Yeah. And it really, I designed that in a way because, one, it would help with that kind of emotional literacy, but it's the difference of showing somebody a card when they're feeling a certain way as a way of teaching them just doesn't sit with me in terms of compassion. Like, if somebody showed me a card, imagine our husbands, like, you're feeling frustrated and they got out a card to show you, like, that wouldn't be what I would want. So it was doing that, not using these cards as is this the feeling you're having, but actually using these cards in play outside of those moments, but using play as a way to talk about those feelings. Because when you're playing games, you're getting a whole host of feelings, but it means that because it's in play, they're tolerable. So children who can't otherwise tolerate the feeling of anxiety, and that'll be true for some children, but very true for children with trauma. It's a very overwhelming feeling. As is embarrassed, guilt. All those feelings are very overwhelming to talk about initially outside of play.
Good point.
So we can talk about them in these games. You can even talk about feeling guilty that you're winning.
Yeah.
It's to bring those words into a child's vocabulary into the world, literally getting them onto the table, but in play, because that builds the foundations for then talking about them outside of play.
Yeah, because in my conversations with kids cards and in body safety education, we talk about early warning signs, right?
Yeah.
And we had this conversation when we met. Kids who have trauma and have had have had a history of abuse, sometimes they won't even recognize early warning signs because their body is protecting them from their feelings, because the feelings are so great and so big. Our brain and our body disconnect and we can't feel them. So some kids will not feel early warning signs. And it's hard because you now have to connect those things back together. And when they feel so strong, who wants to feel that? Like sometimes.
Yeah.
It takes a brave person and an aware person to want to reconnect back with those feelings.
Yeah. And I think, it's really important that people who can do the job for children with trauma, like you and myself, do it, because it's not something everyone can do. And children will know if you're genuine when they've had those experiences very, very quickly.
Yeah.
It's really funny that you say that you were told that about your face, because my mum, bless her, used to say, "What's wrong with your face?" That was her emotional coaching, because my face tells the story. And she'd say, "What's wrong with your face?" Thanks, Mum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
that was
wrong with
a
it's just my
compassionate
face.
approach. It's just my face. But there probably was something wrong with it, but you can't, that's not the way to get a conversation out of a child, is it? What's wrong with your face?
Yeah, thanks for the safe space, Mum. I had a sergeant pull me up and say, "Kristi, you might not be saying what you're thinking, but your face is telling us all what you're thinking." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, I just watched your face screw up and literally I could read your face and it was like, F you.
Yeah.
To whoever was talking to me, and it was another sergeant or something. I was like, "Oh," he goes, "You need to learn how to control your face." I was like, that was early on in my career. I think I did get better at it, but still, I don't think I have complete control of my face. But yeah, I'm okay with that now.
Yeah.
With regards to, so here's the thing. Ted goes through a whole range of things. Ted goes through I think it's 10 different activities. I haven't got the book out at the moment because when you get the box with Ted has all of these little packages in there, and there's a little welcome pack, and in it has a naming certificate, which I was super excited. I haven't named my Ted because I have a purpose for that, but I was like, this reminds me of Cabbage Patch Dolls. Because Cabbage Patch Dolls, you used to get a certificate with a name on it and everything. Anyway, back in the day, I'm old enough to have one. But yeah, you get a naming certificate so you can name your Ted. I think that's beautiful. It gives ownership and autonomy to the child who's getting this toy, this support toy, because they get to give their Ted a name. They get to decide who they are. They give them a personality. It creates that connection with them.
Yeah. It's the idea that it's yours. It's your safe person, that before you're ready to talk to people, perhaps, before you're ready to tell mum and dad, you've got it to talk to. And that spans so many children. We can think of those in the most need who are in the care system or with trauma. But right through to children anyway, can sometimes find it really hard to talk to adults about it because we're very good at giving advice as parents, and it can shut down the emotion. So most of the time when I'm working with, families who are struggling with things that most people are struggling with, but they've come to see me because they want to get the best for their child, I'm still often supporting parents to hold back from the advice and do the listening.
Yeah, I've been
it's
very bad at that.
It's really hard.
It is very
I can
hard.
do it in work, but I can't always do it with
in
my own
life.
children.
Yeah, it's easier with everyone else.
I try because I know what I'm supposed to do. But when it's your own children, you've got that emotional investment. It's really hard to be that quiet listener.
Yeah.
Because you want to fix it.
That. Look, I'm the first person to admit, sitting across the table from other people's kids and hearing their stories and supporting parents in what to say and what to do is so much easier than when it's your own children. So I totally understand parents who are like, I'm really trying, but it's so tough, because we've got programming, we've got conditioning that we have learned from our own families and parents, and it takes effort and energy to change those patterns. So I totally get it. So one thing that was interesting in what you said, though, is for them kids to practice with their TED before they can say it to someone else.
Yeah.
Now, what's really interesting about that is, in my experience, if children didn't disclose abuse to me or didn't disclose abuse, sometimes they would come back maybe 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years. They would come back when they felt safe and when they had the courage or they knew what to say,
Yeah.
because they maybe in the moment, even though that there was evidence that something might have been happening or there was a disclosure or a mandatory report that said we think this child's being abused, sometimes they didn't have the language or they weren't ready to say something. So when
Yeah.
they were interviewed, they said nothing. They do need practice. This is why one of the things I teach is that we need to give children the language and the opportunity to know when something happens,
Yeah.
this is what we do and it's okay.
Yeah.
And so talking to TED, it makes so much sense because
Yeah.
kids will practice with their toys, with their horse, like my horse.
Yeah. And I think when I thought about the 10 different activities for the Tedology bear, it was the idea that, yes, at some point I want to get children who need to process and talk about emotions and their experiences to a point that they understand that that's a really helpful thing to do. And I always do this kind of pyramid idea
Yeah.
because that's your top end when you're starting to do that. That's when other things, it's still bothering you. But actually, that's the hardest bit to do. And most adults walk around not having therapy for that reason.
Yeah. To talk about it.
Yeah.
I've got a few people in my mind right now that like seriously need therapy, but will
Yeah.
never, or hopefully will seek it out one day, but it takes a lot of courage to go and get it.
Yeah. A lot of courage because sometimes we know it'll bring things up for us, but we don't know what we're going to do with those feelings. So I wanted Tedology to, one, give children the language by teaching them through the cards and through the games it does when you press its tummy. But then also, how do you calm down when you've got the difficult feeling? Because then you're going to be more equipped to think, I can handle difficult feelings.
Yeah.
I know what they're called and I know what to do with them when they're in my body. So I am now in
So
a
good.
position where I can actually talk about it. And I really noticed that through my work as a psychologist, because you would often get children who might be referred and then told they won't engage or they've disengaged.
Yeah.
And I used to hate that because that was just a missed opportunity because someone's done too much. Or how else would I say that? When I used to hear they've disengaged from services, they've disengaged from therapy, or they won't attend, it's often because it's overwhelming. It's not because they're not willing to do the work. We just have to help them feel resilient and confident enough that they can handle the work. And by the
Yeah.
work, I mean any therapeutic work.
Yeah, I mean, look, I saw a lot of disengaged youth and children in coming to even talk to a police officer. And of course, do you think if they're not going to talk to a psychologist or they're not going to engage with someone, or if they have said something, it's usually like thrown out and then they retreat back in and they leave, like they literally basically batten down the hatches and put their armor back on because they're in survival mode a lot of the time when they feel like that. And a disengaged person in my mind is someone who feels like they're not safe and they've put all their armor on to keep safe. And that's
Yeah.
all they're doing. And the longer we allow this to continue, or the longer that it takes for them to find the right person or the right therapy or the right whatever, right, the safety, the thicker those walls get, the thicker that armor gets. I mean, I personally, I put my daughter in therapy from about 10 years old. And so the main reason is because I knew that I was struggling by that stage in my own position as a police officer, but also I started therapy at 20 because that's what I recognized I needed from all of my own experiences and what I was going through. However, my daughter was showing signs of anxiety and showing signs of like withdrawal and all of these things. And I was like, I need to give her someone else who is safe. I need her to have another safe option. And I started her at 10 or even maybe I think it was a bit earlier because I was like, I wanted to know that it's okay to go and get help. It's okay to go and talk to someone. Mum and dad aren't always going to be safe people if the situation's not, if we're not being the supportive people she needs to have someone else in her team. So it's really important that kids have multiple avenues to talk to. Grandparents are really great if they're the right grandparents. Sometimes grandparents aren't. My daughter had her grandmother who she always sat and told stuff to, and her grandmother would come and tell me like, oh, she told me this. And I never brought it up with her, but at least I knew what was going on. So grandparents can be amazing. Aunties and uncles can be amazing.
Yeah.
Family friends can be amazing. But when kids have nothing.
Yeah. Or it can, even if they have, like the amount of children I'll see who have suffered a loss that we just don't talk about a lot. The amount of children who've either lost a sibling or a parent or a grandparent who's been their person.
Yeah. That
And
makes
it's,
sense.
again, it's sometimes really hard to talk about those things because that's not a child who hasn't got anybody to talk to. They've got lots of people to talk to and lots of loving people around them. But this is a difficult topic. So you get that in loss and bereavement. You get in separation. If we think about the levels of separation and divorce.
Well,
So
that's a grief as well.
one of the main, I suppose, one of the catalysts for Tedology was working with a little girl who's from separated parents and said, I just wish my teddies could talk back to me. And I was thinking, I don't know about the talking back to you idea, but yeah, they could do more than they're doing, couldn't they? Because that was her outlet, having
That's who she
a
talked
very hostile, separated family. And whoever you talk to, they're both very loving parents. They adore her, but there's a loyalty that plays out.
And the child is torn between
and
two.
the child's torn. So then they don't tell anybody other than the teddy. But it's still important that they're telling the teddy because that's processing it. And when we say something out loud, as you'll know, it takes it to a higher level of our understanding. And that's when your brain can sort of resolve it itself. So the more we talk about or draw or play out emotional experiences, the better our brain is able to resolve them themselves. And that's what we want to encourage.
Yeah. And I see that so if I relate that back to my policing, right? When I was able to have conversations with someone, whether it be, and I mean, not just conversations, quality conversations, processing feelings and emotions, I was able to process what I'd received, because everything that I did was trauma in the police, right? So that was trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, like whether I go to a road traffic crash or I go to talk to a child that's been abused or I've been to a sudden death, whatever it is, it's all trauma. If I was able to have a good conversation with someone who helped me process what I was feeling, whether it was sadness, whether it was, hopelessness, whatever it was, then I was able to move on and do my job better because I was able to move on to the next thing and not be dragging that with me. When I wasn't, and it happened really quickly, when I shut down from being able to talk to my colleagues or to someone else and I wasn't processing it, that's how PTSD really was able to, that's how anxiety started. That's how the PTSD started. It really latched on and it became like this, like this weight on my shoulders, on my head. It just held me down. It made me feel depressed. And I think you're right. Like I know now a lot of people in my world are like, Kristi, you need to be moving your body and, processing your emotions and doing your things. And I'm learning this even 6 years after the police, that the body stores all of that memory. And so if I haven't moved it through, then how am I meant to expect it to not keep coming back and, feeling it all over again? So our kids are no different. They're just little people who need to process. And I think,
And when the words are so hard to find and sentences are so hard to construct and I think about the amount of time sometimes it'll take me as a psychologist in a session with a little person to really get to what it is that's worrying them. That's an awful lot of time and skill, if I dare say, to get them to a point where they're able to do that. We couldn't expect a parent to do that because it takes a lot of time for them to even understand it themselves. And they need to be able to just play that out with all their toys and talk to Ted about that. And until they've got the sentence that is actually what they meant to say, that's taken me an hour in therapy to get to. But we can't just keep putting more psychologists in every school for everyone. We've got to do something earlier on. We've got to do something at scale.
Yeah.
So that we're getting in there early. Yeah. That we're getting in there early. I could see 7-8 clients a day, every day, without advertising any of my services. That's how busy our service is. The waiting list are closed for our service and many others. And I was really aware that I'm sometimes seeing children and teaching them things that if parents were given the tools to do it, could do it. Not the really complicated stuff. We want them doing the complicated stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the dentist model or a physiotherapy model, we take children to the dentist when we need to. And absolutely, we should be doing that and doing the checkups and everything. But in the meantime, we are helping them brush their teeth.
Yeah. That's a good.
Because we've been taught that it's important. We've been given the science of what happens when you don't. We've been given the correct toothpaste and the brushes of how to do it. And that's what I thought, like, if we can do this every day, it will reduce that kind of bottleneck of all the psychology waiting lists and all the demand for services, so that actually that's being used effectively. It's being used for the children who need it.
Yeah. And
And
look,
at the same time, parents feel empowered. There's as a mum, there's not as a mum, feeling like you don't know how to help your child is not a good feeling.
heartbreaking. It's
Yeah.
heartbreaking and it's debilitating. Like,
Yeah.
there's times that my daughter was struggling at school or struggling with bullies or struggling. And here I am feeling like, I'm meant to be able to protect my child and I can't help her with how she's feeling when she's feeling abandoned or rejected by friends, or she's got anxiety because she doesn't like her teacher, or, and,
Yeah.
we do our best and we try really hard. But again, some of these things, like I knew from experience, I couldn't protect her from all of that. All I could do was help her, support her, make her feel like she wasn't alone in it. Because one of the things that one of my other guests said recently, and he's a psychologist as well, he's a doctor as well, and he said, it's not our job to slay the dragons for our kids, it's to teach our kids to become dragon slayers.
Yeah, like that.
And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, like that is, like literally that is what we have to do, because I know that and same with, teaching them body safety and stuff, like we can't be with them. We can't put them in a bubble 24/7. We can do our best everywhere we go, but we also have to teach our kids how to live in the world and how to help themselves and support themselves. And I think that's one of the things that I loved about TED, more so because I know that there's so many kids who can't say what's happening and can't verbalize what's happening, but TED can hear it. And eventually they will have the words and the sentence or the language to be able to then go share it with someone else.
Yeah. And feel ready that they can tolerate those feelings because they know how to manage feelings.
And you're the best person because you obviously have got a lot of experience with children with trauma and seeing kids in your clinic and stuff like that. You've obviously got a lot of experience in this space that you are able to see, like I said at the very beginning, I love people who see a need and feel it. Like we don't, because I'm an actioner. I'm a person of action. Like if I see something, I'm like putting my hand up. I'm like, I'll go and do it. I'll help. I'll do whatever. So for me, anyone who goes out of their way to create something for the greater good of anyone, but especially children, a hero in my eyes.
Yeah, it's been such a rewarding process to do it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes and the amount of children it can help and the amount of families, really. That's kind of why I gave this full parent guide with the bear.
Yeah, I'm just like, there's a companion guide.
Yeah.
And in the companion guide, it's beautifully, by the way, whoever did your graphic design, beautifully, like it's very appealing and explains it very well. And yeah, beautiful. Like it's just such a well-made product. And I know from my own experience with this, it's, you breathe and you bleed this project and you're like, oh, I just hope. And it's like birthing another child, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's all the preparation, then it arrives and you can, oh, what am I supposed to do now?
So how can people find your Tedology, TED?
So we have the website, tedology.com.au, but we're on Instagram and Facebook as well. We've got sessions coming up about hear more about it.
I'm going to be promoting TED more and more as I go. No, I really do believe in because again, I know parents and families are struggling to get their kids support and help. The lists are so long that, it breaks my heart when I see families who they just want to help their kids and they can't. And look, TED is not a replacement for proper psychology or counseling or therapy, but TED might give you some support in between. TED might give your child the voice to speak up and the tools to regulate and help. So yes, I will be screaming from the rooftops about TED.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'll put everything in the show notes.
We've got what the beauty of TED is that families can obviously get Tedology for their homes. We've got grants in place with BACA, as you've helped with.
Yeah.
And on NDIS for many.
Right. Well,
so there's lots of different avenues, grants to get this to families.
Amazing.
so
All
that they
right.
can start that journey. And I notice as a psychologist, when the families have got Tedology, it does make it so much easier to do the work, because they've just got this resource that will talk them through it, rather than, I suppose, when I was doing the clinical work with all children, you're always finding ways that they can take what they've learnt with you
And
and
practice it.
generalize it into life. A bit like the dentist example again.
Yep. Yep.
If we can teach them to do this at home, then we'll start to see the biggest difference. And we need to be seeing the biggest difference with 1 in 3 children struggling with mental health difficulties.
Yeah.
We need to be doing something that makes a difference on a daily basis.
Yeah, because this is the thing. You go into see your therapist, you talk about your problems and what's making you upset and anxious and worried and all of these things. You leave there, and then what, right? So
Yep.
TED is the in-between part, the part that supports kids in between, and maybe even just supports kids in finding a little bit more comfort in their day.
Yeah.
So amazing, Louise.
Thank
I'm so
you.
I'm
too.
so glad that you came and spoke to me. I will put every bit of information in the show notes. And again, if anyone wants to find out more about Tedology, just tedology.com.au. And if you do have NDIS, or there is grants and there is NDIS. And I think I wish I had had a TED for my daughter. I think she would have been obsessed with him. Actually,
I wish I'd have had a TED for me.
Me too. I needed a TED. We were lucky with our dog and our horse.
We had a dog.
I'm just thinking now, I wonder if my 18-year-old daughter needs a TED.
The TED's at Curtin University at the moment in the lab, helping doctors there just regulate apparently between sessions. I get these amazing stories from adults and families every week about what TED's up to.
You need to share them on your Instagram.
I know I do. I need
Please
to get better
do.
at that.
I think
I
that's
need to get
part
better
of,
at that.
People need to hear these stories, because now I'm starting to think I am not using TED to his advantage. But
no, definitely do.
All right. Thanks, Louise.
Bye.
If today's conversation resonated with you, I'm not surprised, because Louise is talking about something that most of us never got, the tools to actually understand what we're feeling and do something useful with it. And now she's putting those tools into the hands of children, literally. TED is not a replacement for therapy or professional support, but he might just be the bridge that helps a child find the words, regulate in the moment, or feel a little less alone. And that matters more than we can measure. You'll find all of Louise's details and links to Tedology in the show notes, including how to access TED through NDIS or grants, if that applies to your family. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it, because every parent, carer, or educator who listens is one more person equipped to help a child thrive. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.